Welcome to How Much Money Do Doctors Make in Residency in America in the United States. My name is Dr. Manik Madaan. In this video, I will be revealing the 7 salaries of resident doctors in the US, and I'll be taking you over my own personal experience as a resident doctor. How much money do I make in all these 7 domains, from base salary to moonlighting. At the end of the video, I will reveal the total salary I make, including taxes, and I will also be taking you over the other benefits of being a resident doctor in America, as well as the work-life balance. Let's start with first the base salary. What is the base salary of a resident doctor in the US? Based upon the most recent surveys done in 2024, this number is about $70,000 per year. And when I say $70,000 per year, this is across all the years, which means across the first year of residency, the second, third, fourth. So it's across these 4 years. Plus, this is also across all states and cities in the US. If you look at the monthly pay, then this is about $5,833 per month, and weekly pay is about $1,346. This comes to be about $19.2 per hour. Now, please note that this is the pre-tax number. I'll be going into the post-tax number later on towards the end of the video. So what is the progression of the average residency salary in America? If you look at this chart, this looks at the average resident salary throughout the years. In 2021, the average salary was $64,000. This remained almost the same. In 2023, it was $67,000, and in 2024, this was about $70,000. There's a 5% growth for the past 2 consecutive years. Now let's look at what causes the residency salary to vary. There are primarily 4 factors that can cause this variation. The first is the year of residency you are in. If you look at somebody who is in first or second year of residency, they make $65,000 a year pre-tax. In third year, this number increases to $68,000. In fourth year, this number increases to $70,000. And in year 5 to 8, so this is where we go into the domains of fellowship, there the average number is $78,000 per year. The reason this salary increases throughout the years is because as you develop as a resident, you become more valuable to the hospital, plus you have more specialty expertise, so you should be paid higher. I'll go into how much I made in first year and then how much I make in second and third year later on. The second factor that can cause the residency salary to vary is the inflation. As time passes, the values of goods and services increases, so the value of money is going down. Because of that, the residency salary has to be adjusted every single year. If you look at this data from 2022, this is when I was a first year resident, and this is 2023 to 2024 when I was a second year resident. This is the current data, which is when I am currently a third year resident. You can see the PGY1 who was admitted in 2022 to 2023 period made about $63,000 in this period, but in the next year they made $63,862, which is a 0.5% increase. And in 2024 to 2025, this salary increased to about $66,000, the 5% increase. The next is location. So location can cause the residency salary to vary in 2 ways. The first way is based upon taxes. We pay 3 taxes in America. The first one is the federal tax, which is a national level tax that everyone has to pay. The second tax is the state tax, which each state charges a different tax. The third tax everyone has to pay is a city tax if they are in a city. Generally, the trend is the higher the taxes based upon the state and city, the higher the residency salary has to be to compensate for those increased taxes. For you to get a better idea, I've compared about 3 programs. One is in Texas, a state which charges 0% state tax. New York, which charges, this is the New York state, not the city here, they have a higher tax rate, which is a state tax. And then New York City, which also has a higher state tax, but it also has the city tax. So the taxation is going in an increasing direction as we go from the left to right. So you can see a PGY1, which is a first year resident, would be making about $65,000 in Texas, versus in New York State, it would be $68,788 versus New York City, where it would be $89,100. You would think, wow, look at the salary in New York City, so high compared to the Texas salary. But what many people discount is this state and city tax, which can be a massive tax if you are living in New York City. And the funny part is sometimes the salary here, this is $65,000, post-tax ends up being higher than what you would get in states with higher taxes or cities with higher taxes after you adjust it for the cost of living in that city. Next part that can cause the salary to vary in the location is whether whether you're living in a city versus suburban versus rural areas. Here I've shown you the salary. One is from a program in a city. The second is from a program in a suburban area, which is tad below a city, and another is in a rural area. What you will technically find is as we go from left to the right, the cost of living decreases, which causes things to get cheaper in a rural area compared to suburban or city area. In order to compensate that for the cost of living, you have to give a higher salary in a city versus what you would see in a suburban or a rural area. So a PGY2 in a city would make about $76,953 versus $71,307 in a suburban area versus $69,561 in a rural area. Next, third factor which can cause the salary to vary is the hospital system. There are primarily three hospital systems in the US. One is a university hospital system, which is owned by a university. The second is a community, which is a private hospital. This is owned not by a university but by a private company. The third is a university-based community program where a university has acquired a community system and this community system is working under that university. Here the trend is the compensation tends to be the highest in community and university-based community programs compared to university, because being in a university comes with its own benefits, its own fame, academic recognition, and the price you pay is with your salary. Versus if you see a community and university-based community program, this tends to not be the case. You don't get the same benefits, and because of that, they have to compensate with a higher salary. That's generally the trend you will see. Lastly, specialty. So many students ask me, does specialty affect my salary? And the answer is no. If you're in a hospital system, let's say in New York, the above figures that I showed you, these figures would be the same for each and every specialty, and it doesn't matter how many hours you're working. For example, psychiatry could be working 40 hours versus surgery who could be working 100 hours, and their salary would still be the same. So specialty does not cause the salary to vary. Next, what is my salary? This salary figure that you see here is pre-tax. When I started my first year of residency, my salary was $63,000 for the whole year. This increased to $66,015 in my second year, and in my third year, I'm getting $69,552. There have been other salary increases which I'm going to go into. There's 6 more other types of salaries which I'll talk about, but this is what I make on a base pre-tax. We'll talk post-tax towards the end of the video. Next, we need to talk about educational stipend. In residency in America, you are paid an education stipend for your professional development. What is covered in the education stipend? The first element is books. If you are studying in medicine, the program would give you money to buy books in medicine for your professional development so you can pass your exit examinations or your board examinations. Generally, the stipend that many residents get is $600 to $1,000 per year for their academics. The second is laptop. This is given in the first year of residency. This is mainly meant for using the EMR plus doing research. This tends to be about $1,000. Third is phone. Many residencies want you to have a separate professional phone, and some residencies will give you an iPhone, or some residencies will give you money about $800 to $1,000 in your first year to buy your own phone. Fourth is USMLE Step 3. So this is an exam resident doctors write in the US once they've cleared all these steps. Step 1, Step 2, they matched into the residency. Many residency programs would cover this charge. It's about $1,000. Last is board exams. So board exams are exit exams. Let's say your 3 years of residency is over and now you have to practice as an internal medicine doctor. You have to take an exam by the ABIM, which is the American Board of Internal Medicine, and this exam would be somewhere in the range of $2,000 to $3,000, and that is the educational stipend. I got money towards books. In my first year, I got $600. In my second year, I got $700. In my third year, I got $800. I didn't really get a stipend towards the laptop. I had my own laptop which I had to do with. I did get a phone, which is an iPhone. Rest, USMLE Step 3 I had to cover for, and board exams I have to pay for them. Now let's talk about food allowance. When you're working as a resident, you need fuel. That fuel is food, and the residency program will try to cover it because you're working in a job and they want to provide you good, nutritious food, hopefully, for you to perform well in the residency. And there are about 3 ways they cover this. The first way is through money. They would deposit money either in your badge. This can be quarterly or weekly, or they could also deposit it in your bank account, which is yearly. The second way many residency programs cover it is by giving free food, which happens during morning rounds or lunch time. The third way is it could be a combination of money plus free food, where certain amount of funds are allocated to you for buying your food, plus you also get free food at times, which could be breakfast and lunch. So how much do residents get? The numbers that I have seen is $150 to $300 $200 per month, which you can spend in cafeteria. I have a different model where I'm allocated free food, which I can order on calls. Plus, I'm also allocated $150 every 3 months, which is quarterly. This tends to be sufficient for me. There are other residencies where you will get this as well. Plus, you will also see that, on-call room is stacked with all the snacks that you need, which would include like Gatorade or energy drinks so that you can keep going on the call. Next, the fourth salary that resident doctors get is travel allowance, which is money towards professional development to represent the residency in conferences, to a research publication where you are presenting research, or it could be something else where this could be more administrative, where you are representing the program in administrative work. And this is given in two ways. The first way is every resident could have $1,000 per year in travel allowance. I've seen that happen. I've seen even $3,000 happen in certain cases. And the second way is through a travel fund, which is all the residents have a certain amount of money per year allocated. This could be $6,000. And whoever is presenting research tends to borrow in from this total fund for the year. For example, if only one resident is presenting and they end up spending $6,000 in, let's say, 4 conferences, they will be given all of this, right, to one person. However, if 2 people are presenting, this would mean that $3,000 could be given to each person. Next, the fifth salary the resident doctors make is the housing stipend. And this is generally given in 2 ways. The first way you would see this happening is through money. They would deposit certain amount of money in your bank account for staying close to the hospital. The second way is through subsidized housing. Many programs would provide you with their own housing at a very subsidized rate, which is about half the market rate, and you can stay there, which saves you a lot of money. How much is the pay here? The numbers you will see, and this is what I'm quoting from in New York City, this tends to be about $3,000 per quarter, about $1,000 per month. So if your apartment is $3,000, residency would cover the rest of the $1,000 and you'll pay about $2,000. Next is the sixth salary, which is the chief stipend salary. Before I talk about the chief stipend, you need to know what is a chief resident. Chief resident is a resident which is being appointed by the residency to serve administrative tasks, which means that they have to come up with the call schedule, and if it changes, they have to make certain changes to it. Other roles could be managing conflict, orientation to interns, residents who have just joined, and working with the other administrators, the program director, or the other staff to give directions to the residents. That's what a chief resident does. You become a chief resident when you are either in your 3rd year of residency, if that's your final year, or your 4th year of residency. There are 2 ways chief residents are paid for the extra work they're doing. The first one is through an annual salary. The second one is through a monthly salary. Annually, I've seen residents getting paid from $1,000 extra to $6,000 in a year for the administrative work that they do. Monthly, I've seen this go from $50 to $100. Next, the 7th salary for resident doctors in the US is moonlighting. What is moonlighting? Moonlighting means you are working extra hours apart from the work that is required, and you should be compensated for that. There are a few requirements you need to meet in order to qualify for the moonlighting salary, and this generally is you have to be at least a 2nd or 3rd year resident who is in good standing with the program. So you've done your work well. The program then gives you the permission to do either 1 or 2 types of moonlighting. One is internal moonlighting, where you are working in your residency program in the same hospital, versus it could be external moonlighting, where you're working outside of that hospital. If you are doing internal moonlighting, some hospitals allow visa holders such as J1 and H1B to make extra money on that. J1, it seems to be a bit more rarer. If you don't have a visa, of course, you can do internal moonlighting. External moonlighting tends to be reserved mostly for non-visa holders, which means you have to have a green card for this, because you are authorized to work in the US if you have a visa for your own program. So that's why internal moonlighting works with visas. External moonlighting, however, you're working outside the hospital, you need a green card to get that salary. So how much are residents paid for moonlighting? I've seen figures go from $100 an hour to $500 an hour. If you are in very rural programs, they are in need of doctors, you're pretty well trained, you can make as much as that. Let's put that into perspective. If you're even making $100 an hour and you work 8 hours per week, that is $800 a week. Let's multiply that by 4, because there are 4 weeks. That's $3,200 extra in salary per month. If you multiply it by 52, this would be about $40,000 for the whole year. If you combine it with the average pay, you're making about $110,000. So let's go into the 8th part of the video, which is other benefits, which are not monetary but nevertheless are very important. First one is vacation. in most residencies, you're allowed at least 20 to 25 days of PTO, which is paid time off. Residencies will give you sick days as well, in addition to this paid time off, which would be about 5 days. So you can get up to a month of vacation using the vacation days and sick days. In addition to this, there are also 10 plus federal holidays in the US. Next are retreats. Retreats are occasions when the residency program comes together. This could be the staff, the resident, to have fun. And the way they could do this is through going to the arcade, which I've done with my program. And then it could be in other ways where you might take a trip to some vacation spot nearby and just relax. This could also come in other ways where you maybe play a game or you go to the park and play treasure hunt. It's super fun, and this generally happens either once a year or this could happen twice a year. In some programs, they also happen quarterly, which is every 3 months. Next part is clothing. Now that you're going to work for a residency, they need to give you certain clothing to look professional. Everyone's given about 2 white coats for free. At times you have to return them, at times you can keep them at the end of your residency. Secondly, many residencies also give clothing stipends where you can take that clothing stipend and you can use it to buy scrubs or white coats for your professional demeanor. Next is 401k, and you would ask, what is 401k? You can take certain percentage of your salary, let's say 3%, and ask your hospital to deposit it in the stock market in very stable funds like index funds, and this gets invested there pre-tax, so you don't have to pay tax in it, and that's what is called as 401k. You can allocate a certain percentage up to a limit. Sometimes the limit could be $4,000 a year, sometimes it could be $8,000 a year, but you're not paying tax, which could be as high as 20%. So you're saving about $1,600 if you take a 401k. Many employers will also match it, which is if you put 3% of your salary towards a 401k, your employer could match it and give you 3% extra, which is 6%. The next part is health insurance. So in the US, almost everyone needs health insurance to cover for all their bills, which can be at times massive. Health insurance can be given in 2 ways. Sometimes the program would give you this for free as part of their benefits. This generally happens with community programs, which don't give a lot of the academic benefits. However, many programs make you pay for it. I pay for my own health insurance, which can be significant, and I'll talk to you about how much am I paying. Even dental insurance can be given for free by the program, or you have to pay for it. Free parking, so I certainly enjoy this benefit, and many residencies would give you free parking to park in the US near their hospital. However, there are residencies where you have to pay, which tends to happen in cities where it's coming out of your pocket. Therapy. Many residency programs will offer free therapy or therapy which is subsidized to their resident doctors for mental health purposes. Next, in the 9th part of the video, let's talk about the work-life balance of being a resident doctor in the US. So the survey that I talked about before, which was the latest survey, this is the data from there. This shows you the hours per week residents spend with patients or in the hospital. This is the number of hours, and this is residents who are working less than 30 hours, and this is residents who are working more than 70 hours. And these are residents who are working about 51 to 60. What you would see here is most residents are working less than 70 hours. There's even in fact a law protecting residents where they can't work more than 80 hours per week. So even if you take the worst case scenario, working 70 hours per week, I on the other hand am not even working this much. I'm working 40 to 60 hours because I'm in a chiller residency like psychiatry. Dermatology also falls in the same domain. However, if you look at internal medicine, surgery, they can work within the bracket of 70 to 80 hours. Next, let's look at how did residents feel about their learning experience. You can see that most residents are pretty much satisfied, and quality of learning is not an issue in the US for residents then. Next, what is the average number of calls? Because calls, if you're working overnight, can determine the quality of your life. You can see that around in 10 residents get 5 or fewer calls per night, which tells me that you're not having calls as frequently. There are many residencies where doctors are on call every 3 or 4 days. Next, how is the work-life balance? The work-life balance for most residents, it's pretty good. You can see here, most said that neither better nor worse, but the trend is pretty positive. Next is relationship with attendings. You can see 95% of residents report that their relationships with attending doctors, which are their senior doctors, was pretty positive. Next, let's look at the work relationship with nurses and physician assistants, which are mid-level providers and part of the staff. Most residents, about 96%, rate that it's pretty positive. Next is, do residents have workplace stress relief programs available? A whopping majority say yes, which is 47%. The next part is, they were asked, how often have you experienced workplace misconduct, somebody misbehaving with you? And only about 10% said frequently to occasionally. So 1 in 10 residents said they had this experience, while a whopping majority, about 90%, said rarely to to never. How often residents have enough social time? And a whopping majority said that they had social time, which is 46% and 16% here and 2% here. This comes to be more than 6 in 10 residents say they have enough social time for their day-to-day relationships and family. So the final part is the total salary, which is the total salary that I make, including all the 7 salaries. Plus, I'm going to take into account how much money am I paying in tax, plus how much money am I paying for insurance, and how much do I take at the end. Let's go through my paycheck. So you can see my total base salary pre-tax. I'm paid bi-weekly, which is every 2 weeks. So in a month, I'm paid twice. This is my paycheck. As a resident, I was paid for 80 hours, which is 40 hours per week. I was paid $2,675 for my 2 weeks of work, which comes to be $1,340 per week. I'm also given long-term disability premium, which is $7.49. And then there's another salary that I'm given, which is group term life insurance. For that, I was paid about $2.49. In total, I made $2,685 for 2 weeks. That's $1,340 per week. Next, let's go into how much taxes I'm paying for 2 weeks. This is from my paycheck where the taxes were deducted. The first tax that I'm paying is the county tax, which is Derry County, where I live in. Second tax that I am paying is the federal tax. And the third tax is another tax that I have to pay for the county that I'm living in. And the fourth tax is the state tax, which is the PA tax. And the fifth tax is also part of the PA tax. I'm in Pennsylvania. So this is the state tax. This is the county tax. This is the federal tax. So I'm paying about 3 taxes at least in total, 5 if you look at every individual component. So I paid $26.31 in taxes for my county tax, plus $2 here. That's about $28. Next is federal taxes. I paid $265 here, and state tax I paid about $82 for a period of 2 weeks. My total tax came to be $376.61 for a period of 2 weeks. Apart from the taxes, I also pay for my health insurance. I pay for 2 health insurances. One is dental insurance. The other is my basic health insurance for medical purposes. I paid $8.38 for 2 weeks for my dental insurance, $42.96 for my medical or health insurance, and that came to be $51.34 for 2 weeks. How much does my salary then come out to be after post-tax and benefits? The net pay is, if you subtract all of that, I made $2,247 for a period of 2 weeks, and monthly salary then comes to be $4,495 post-tax. This comes to be a yearly salary of $58,422 post-tax after I have paid for all my insurance. If you look at the per hour rate, I'm getting paid $28 for every hour of my work. Additional salaries that I do need to add here is stipends. I do get a food stipend of $150 per quarter. I'm getting paid about $600 every year. Additionally, I also get an academic stipend. This year I got $800 in academic stipend. So this is extra $1,400. My total salary post-tax that I take home, it's $58,400 plus $1,400. And this is $59,600. Now that you know how much resident doctors make in the US, you're going to love this video about how much doctors out of residency make in the US.